Welcome to this special best of edition of the Prayer Link. Today we take a look back at some of our favorite interviews that will encourage and inspire your life. We will begin with Pastor Craig Cooney. He's the senior pastor of Hope Church near Belfast, Ireland, and the author of several books, including The Tension of Transition and The Blueprint.
Great books, by the way. His Instagram page, daily.prophetic, has nearly 100,000 followers where he posts powerful and timely words of encouragement for the body of Christ. Pastor Cooney recently joined us with more. Take a look. Welcome to the Prayer Link.
Great to be with you, Wendy and Charlene. It's such a joy to be able to join you from across the pond here in sunny Ireland.
sunny, misty, but very green still. Very green. Charlene,
for
green.
Yeah.
You're going to love Charlene's suit when you see it. All right, Pastor, if I have time to just check one thing on Instagram, I go immediately to your site because you seem to have your ear finely tuned to what the Spirit of God is saying in this season. And speaking of that, what do you believe is the most important thing God is saying to us for 2023?
I don't think I can narrow it down to one thing, so let me try and narrow it down to three. The first one is this: the shaking will continue. And I would love to be able to tell you something better than that. But back at the end of 2019, the Lord gave me a very clear prophetic word about 2020 and everything that would happen. I posted it, people unsubscribed. I saw the National Guard in the streets. I saw a huge event happening that would affect the next decade, and Christians don't like that stuff, funny enough, and people unsubscribed. But I really believe we are in what I call a decade of disruption. And we know that the global elites at Davos and these guys are all talking about 2030. That's a key year for them all. And I believe that we are in a decade of disruption where we are going to go from crisis to crisis, and some of them will be real, but many of them will be manufactured.
Wow.
And the reason will be to cause fear. Because a fearful population or an easily controllable population.
And we've already gone through that with COVID, right?
Yes.
That was a test run. I think, honestly, I think it was something that just happened. I'm not sure. It may have been deliberate, may not, but I think it was seized upon very quickly to see how controllable people can be. And when we look back now, we go, how did we not let people say goodbye to their loved ones in hospital?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was in a hospital last week here, and half the ward had COVID and nobody cared. 3 years ago, I couldn't have been allowed to visit my parishioners who were dying in that hospital. And nobody's asking those questions. So I do believe we are going to go from compounded crisis. And part of it, some of it will be real, but some of it will be to induce fear. And I think, the Bible talks about this. This is Matthew 24:20, there will be wars and rumors of wars, there will be shaking among the nations. I think we are seeing a geopolitical restructuring right now. Watch as things start to move to countries that were emerging that we may not have heard much of in the past, that are going to suddenly emerge to prominence. Some of the African countries, some of the South American countries, and also particularly watch the Middle East.
Wow.
Countries like Saudi Arabia.
The Middle East.
The Middle East. Look at the book of Revelation. Look at the entire scriptures. Where does everything center upon at the end? The Middle East.
Yeah.
And at the minute, we're so focused on Ukraine and Russia and the States and South America and Brazil. Everybody's ignoring the Middle East. And when you start to see something move towards the Middle East, I would pay very close attention. This alignment between Iran and Russia, who would have imagined that 10 years ago? And yet the Bible clearly talks about that. So I would love to tell, there's going to be shaking. There's going to be financial shaking. We're already starting to see the start of that. I honestly believe that is going to get more significant. But I do believe in the word that many prophets are getting, and I would subscribe to this, is that in the midst of the shaking, there will be a Goshen. there will be a Goshen.
Amen.
The Genesis, that God's people, if they will heed the voice of the Lord and obey the voice of the Lord, he will provide a place of resource, and he will provide wisdom and ingenuity for us, not just to survive this time, but to flourish through this season and to resource those in lack.
Amazing. Okay, Pastor, we've got 4 minutes. You wrote a book that I absolutely recommend to everyone. It's called The Tension of Transition. It's great for anyone who's going through a big change in their life. Many of the words and advice that you give on Instagram are related to how to navigate transition and cross over into the new thing God is doing. Why is this such an important topic? And how can we avoid getting stuck while we're waiting for the new thing?
It came out of our own journey, where we walked away from a church and a situation into nothing because God had spoke to us. And the phrase I often use is this: people always say that God never closes one door without opening another one, but they never talk about the hallway in between.
Wow.
And we found ourselves in a hallway in between, where we knew God had called us out of something, we just didn't know what he was calling us into. And that could be a place, it could be a church, it could be a ministry, it could be a relationship, it could be anything. We know God is calling us out, but we're not sure what's next. And a lot of people get lost in the hallway in between, and discouraged and despondent. And that's where we found ourselves a little bit. And that's where the book came out of. And so that's why I think it's so important for us to learn how to navigate. And the journey I used in the book was the Israelites coming out of Egypt and wandering through the wilderness and entering the promised land. And unfortunately, most of them never made it through the wilderness.
Wow.
But they could have. They could have.
How do we do it? How do we make it?
I think there's a few things. I think faith and obedience are always key. I mean, that is really what disqualified them: their lack of faith and their lack of obedience. And even going back to your previous question, this is a season where we cannot allow carnality, compromise, and disobedience into our lives.
Wow.